tick-tock clock. But here, the preset hope is already in use, and there can only be one. There needs to be a way to place a bomb out of bounds from within the level.
My brain cells can't handle this. Me either, dude.
I'm
just nodding along. I don't get what the fuck is happening either.
He dies immediately. Needless to say, this proved to be quite a challenge for DS273 to solve.
It's all magic to me at this point.
The solution he came up with is nothing short of amazing.
Sorry if I ruined the Ori stream. No, you didn't ruin the Ori stream. Ori ruined the Ori stream. I just have to accept that I really don't like modern Metroidvanias. I really don't. I try and force myself to like them, but I think I just don't like them because they all follow the same, like, somewhat boring formula that I personally don't like, and that's all. Like, I find the beginning parts of Metroidvanias to be so insanely boring, and they usually take, like, 10 to 15 hours to get fun. And I'm too impatient to deal with 10 to 15 hours of, like, leveling up my character for it to be fun. I just wish games would be like, here's a fun character that becomes more fun the more you play, instead of, hey, this is a very basic ass, like, Mario ass character. All you can do is run left, run right, and jump. And then, then you get more fun stuff later. So I don't know. I might play some more off stream to see if the game gets better, but I don't think it's worth me playing on stream anymore because, like, yeah, I don't want to just be mad and frustrated on stream. That's not my goal. My goal is not to just be someone who is angry talking shit about a video game. That's not the stream content I want to do.
But a hope can be set out of bounds. Just below this treadmill, 31 units below to be exact, there's a wall overlap. When
I did the same thing happened to me with Hollow Knight, and I end up thinking Hollow Knight is one of my favorite games of all time. But it took me 15 hours to get there, which is unfortunately just part of the genre, I feel like, so I just have to let it go. And maybe I'll pick it back up and find it fun, like, later, but the same exact thing happened with me in Hollow Knight, so.
Mario moves down by a quarter of that speed, or 7 units. He precisely enters the wall overlap and gets moved outside of the level. But wait, that's out of bounds. How can Mario be out of bounds without instantly dying?
Hollow Knight is a slow start, but that's all Metroidvanias nowadays are just slow starts. Unless
Mario isn't immediate.
Okay, so here's my rant about Metroidvanias. Modern Metroidvanias either have two design philosophies. Either you make a short and concise game that knows what it wants to be and doesn't overstay its welcome, which are the ones that I usually tend to enjoy, or you make a sprawling existential crisis monolith of a video game where you have to explore every nook and cranny for like 50 hours in order to find the next progression item or progression area or whatever. And for whatever reason, those are the games that are like critically acclaimed masterpieces of game design. Meanwhile, I find them to be a little bit too obtuse and like difficult to get into because it requires that you spend a lot of time focusing very hard, backtracking over and over again in these worlds, which most of the time the worlds are fine. Like, Ori has an interesting art style, decent music, and like it's an interesting world design, so I'm not like saying that that's a weak point of it, but I personally don't find it to be gameplay wise enjoyable. So it's hard for me to want to stay in that world and to explore it and to backtrack and to figure out the puzzles when gameplay wise I'm already bored. And the actual environments themselves are like only doing so much for me. Same thing happened in Hollow Knight. I think a lot of people gave Hollow Knight a pass because it was cute cartoon bug game that happened to be as harder than Dark Souls. So a lot of people just stuck with it because it was cute bug game. But I am much more of a function over form kind of gamer where like what are the functions of these games? Like what mechanically am I doing? What kind of rewards am I receiving like mechanically? Like that kind of stuff is stuff that I'm much more worried about. Like the aesthetics, the story, the stuff like that is like a cherry on top, but it's not what makes me enjoy video games. What makes me enjoy video games is actually playing the video games, using their mechanics to overcome whatever obstacles the game designers come up with. So, Dread is both modern and really good. I feel like I probably would like Dread, but I would have to sit back and like I'd have to get it. You know, one way or another, whether I emulate it or whether I actually buy a cartridge of it or something. Get Karma Coin? No thanks, I'm okay. You could just go to a casino if you want to gamble that bad. You don't have to use me as your proxy. Do I have the system for it? I own a Switch, yeah, but I just don't want to buy it because I don't want to give Nintendo any money because I hate their asses. Thanks for the good luck. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's kind of my rant, is that a lot of modern Metroidvanias take way too long to give you like fun abilities or fun movement or just make the game like stand out in any way that hooks me. It takes so long for a game to actually hook me. Like for Hollow Knight, for example, I feel like the hook of Hollow Knight, the main thing that Hollow Knight is great at, more so than anything else, is the boss design and the boss fights. However, most of the boss fights are very, very annoying to deal with early on. They only become fun once you have found all the abilities, found all the upgrades, and like basically the end DLC, the God's Home DLC, is the best part of Hollow Knight in my opinion, because you're just taking your character that is really, really strong and has all these unique and interesting options, and then you're fighting unique and interesting bosses most of the time. Some of the bosses are still dog shit. But it takes so long for the game to get to that point that a lot of the middle game feels very flat to me, because you're spending more time not fighting bosses and not using fun spells and movement options. It just takes so long to get to that point. Blasphemous is the same way. It's fun because you level up. I disagree. I found Blasphemous to be insanely boring because what you gain from leveling up isn't very impactful most of the time. And also, like, your character movement doesn't change very much at all in Blasphemous. And honestly, having weak movement options in a Metroidvania is just the dumbest thing you can do for a Metroidvania. Because what do you do in a Metroidvania more than anything else? What is the number one thing you do in a Metroidvania? You explore. What do you use to explore? Your movement options. 90%, if not more, of the game is the player interacting with your movement options. If your movement options aren't fun, the game isn't fun. It's as simple as that. I don't understand why, like, more people don't put more emphasis on creating interesting or fun movement mechanics from the start of the game, because at the very start, you have to deal with those mechanics and move around. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that. Like, and I also am of the opinion that creating a game based around 2D combat in the style of a Dark Souls game will always fail. It's just never going to be as in-depth as three-dimensional combat. It's never going to be as in-depth as an omnidirectional roll. So giving yourself like a dodge roll or like trying to deal with like Dark Souls combat but in 2D, it's always going to be a cheap imitation compared to 3D. So like you're already starting off on a weaker foot combat-wise, and you have to add more than just like a roll or a parry or whatever, right? You have to give depth to your combat, and most of the time that requires you to add interesting movement options that you can combine with your combat. Have I played Katana Zero? No, not yet. I think, honestly, Metroidvanias as a genre just went in this weird direction that are so different from what I think of as a Metroidvania, which is a game that emphasizes and rewards exploration more so than anything else. But, like, those games just don't exist anymore. I don't know. But I've ranted about this so many times, and I feel like it doesn't matter because I'm ranting about an experience that I inherently don't like. It's like me being somebody who doesn't like roller coasters, trying to yell at everybody else, like, roller coasters suck. They make you feel sick. Your stomach feels like it's jumping out of your throat. You're full of adrenaline and shaking, and it's a fear response, a physical fear response from your body. Meanwhile, there's like a whole subsection of human beings that are like, roller coasters are fucking great. I don't know why you're being so weird about it. That's me with Metroidvanias. I'm like, Metroidvanias are kind of shitty. Like, I don't understand like why everybody's okay with this, this, and this. Meanwhile, everybody else is like, I don't see what you're talking about. I like Metroidvanias. So I feel like I'm just yelling it for no reason. So I don't know. I feel like I just am, unfortunately, the one guy who has made his entire online persona being about Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the Metroidvania, literally the reason Metroidvanias exist, with the title Metroidvania. And I also happen to hate all of them. So, oh well. It is what it is. I've just kind of come to accept the idea that, like, me trying to be the guy that is known for being an expert on Metroidvanias is probably a bad idea, because my expertise really just pertains to older style of Metroidvanias that unfortunately very few people decide to like really invest in that style of Metroidvania. For good reason. I think a lot of them can be obtuse and difficult to navigate, but I think a lot of newer like indie studios can do Metroidvania as well. Team Ladybug, for example, I think does an amazing job of creating small, concise, interesting, unique little worlds for you to explore, but it doesn't overemphasize backtracking. Usually gives you some movement option. Maybe not the best kind of movement options, but something. Or the movement itself is like decent enough, or there's interesting combat, or there's interesting level design, or something to make up for the fact that like the movement isn't great. Also, the de-emphasization, if that's how you say it, of exploration can be a good thing, especially when you eliminate most of the backtracking, but make backtracking rewarding, but not necessary. Do I like Momodora? Yeah. Momodora, specifically the Reverie Under the Moon in the Moonlight, is another example of a small, concise Metroidvania that doesn't overstay its welcome. Toho Luna Nights is another example of that. Same with Deedlit Wonder Labyrinth. Like, these are games that know what they want to be, are designed very tightly. They get in and get out and don't waste your time. And I feel like a lot of modern Metroidvanias just kind of waste your time. I don't know. Gato Roboto is a great example of Metroidvania design, in my opinion, because the idea of Gato Roboto is everything is built into these like linear-ish style levels, but those levels themselves are kind of open. So you explore the levels in a Metroidvania style where you backtrack and like go between different rooms and stuff like that, and like have puzzles within them. But you're not worried about like, oh shit, do I have to travel to the other side of the map because I have to go backtrack over here now? No, because everything is concise. Everything is like built into this one area. So if you're exploring one area, everything you need is in this one area. Once you've left the main area that you're in, there's very little reason, if not zero reason, to ever go back outside of extra collectibles, and that's it. And I feel like that is such a huge advantage for creating a Metroidvania, to keep the player invested without them needing to be like, oh shit, where do I go now? Because ultimately it's like half linear, half exploration. What about Chasm? Chasm is unfortunately a mismatch of a lot of different ideas that did not work out. The procedurally generated like castle, unfortunately, just leaves a lot of the rooms feeling incomplete, if not like cookie cutter, because they had to be, because the castle layout was randomized. Every single playthrough, the castle layout is randomized, which unfortunately leaves a lot to be desired with the quality of those level layouts and the castle layout. The movement is insanely stiff. The combat is also insanely stiff. It's like a slowed down version of what Castlevania combat is supposed to be. And that's saying a lot. Like, Symphony of the Night has more depth of combat than Chasm. And Symphony of the Night is the least in-depth combat system out of all of the Metroidvania style Castlevanias. So it gets insanely boring to basically just put yourself in this like DPS check versus these bosses. Or it's like, do your very slow swing and then wait for to finish recovering, dodge like 3 moves, and then do your next really slow swing attack. The backdash in that game is completely useless because it has a shit ton of startup and end lag, which makes it like what are you trying to dodge at that point? You know what I mean? But the visual style and the everything else is fine about the game, which unfortunately is what Metroidvanias I feel like are now. They are just, hey, I'm making an indie game that has good music and good sprites, so I'm also going to make it a Metroidvania because that's just what indie games do. And also, it's also Dark Souls now, but, you know. Whatever. Yeah. Anyways, that's my rant for Metroidvanias, modern Metroidvanias, and honestly why I probably just won't play very many on stream, or if I do, I usually just drop them after a while because like it gets to the point where I'm just like I'm done. Like I don't know. I feel like they're just not entertaining from start to finish. Most of them require a huge lead up to become entertaining, and honestly, like, I just don't have the time for that. I really don't.
Out of bounds.
I'm gonna be right back. Enjoy Mario Quantum Physics.
The clock extends a little bit outside the walls. Mario is only treated as out of bounds if there's no floor under him, so technically he is still in bounds. After falling for a bit, Mario dives, which he can do while hands-free holding. He hits the actual out of bounds and bonks, which releases the bomb and knocks him back into the level. Meanwhile,